Just how smart are smart motorways? Well, find out in this video. Hi, my name's Andy, this is the Q4 channel, and once again, I'm talking from the shed. So, smart motorways. But before we get into that, if you haven't already subscribed, please hit the subscribe button. Don't forget to hit the bell icon, that way you won't miss out on any future content. And as always, if you want to, leave a comment. So, smart motorways. Just how smart are they? Well, me and the company I work with, we were central in helping the development of smart motorways. So if I was involved, I don't think they're that smart. But the truth is, they aren't that smart. You see, we've been used to having 3-lane motorways, and in some parts, I know in parts of the Midlands where there are 4-laned motorways and still have a hard shoulder. Now, the hard shoulder has always been your safety zone. It's the place you pull over to when you have a problem with your vehicle. If you're having some kind of malfunction, whatever that might be, or a blowout, you were able to pull over onto the hard shoulder and be relatively safe there. Now, as the motorways have become more busy, advice to drivers has also changed. So you were advised, if you pulled over onto the hard shoulder, to get as far left on the hard shoulder as you possibly could. And if you had to wait to be recovered by one of the recovery services, to not stay within your vehicle, but to get out and step away from your vehicle onto the grass verge or the other side of the steel armcoes. This was because there had been incidents of articulated lorries, not just those but rigids as well, that had drifted into the hard shoulder and had collisions with broken down or parked cars that were in the hard shoulder. So the advice was, don't sit in your vehicle, get out of it if you're going to be there for some time. Of course, you didn't have that option if all you were doing was changing a flat tyre. But that was the advice given. But you still had that safety zone of the hard shoulder. Now, the new smart motorways, as they're called, have been developed without a hard shoulder. In fact, creating the 4th lane for the motorways actually took the hard shoulder away. But what they replaced it with was, at incremental points, there were lay-bys. Unfortunately, this only works if you can regulate your breakdown. In other words, what I mean is, if you know you've got a problem with your car, you could think to yourself, it's still running at the moment, but it is going to go wrong. It's running rough, whatever. I can make it to the lay-by and pull in, which is what some people are able to do. If you've got a flat tyre, well, the tyre's already completely ruined. You might as well make it another 100 yards or so and pull in to the safe lay-by area. But that's not always the case. Say your vehicle had a catastrophic electrical failure, or it just died, which happens, and it happens more regularly than you would expect. Well, now, where are you supposed to go? You're still going to be broken down in a live lane. And this is the problem with smart motorways. You see, also at periodic points along the motorway, there is a gantry, and on this gantry it will have certain banks of lights. Some of them will have speed cameras on them. All of them do tend to have traffic flow cameras. These are real-time cameras that are relayed back to a control room so they can see busy times, whether it's building up at, say, rush hour in the morning and evening, and then they can put the bank of lights on to slow the traffic down so that it's easier for the traffic to flow. So that's why you'll have different speeds at the different gantries, going from 50, 40, 60, whatever below the 70 mile an hour speed limit for a motorway. Some people believe these are put on willy-nilly just so they can catch speeders out and give them speeding fines. It collects that revenue. I'm not quite that cynical. I understand the people who say that, but I'm not quite that cynical. I do believe it's to keep the flow of traffic going. So as I said, I and the company that I work for were instrumental in the development of the smart motorway. This happened about 15, 17 years ago. About 30 test drivers went to a fairly secret location that had an already built half-mile, four-laned motorway specifically for training. Now, the place that we went to was for training the fire brigade. So off this motorway area there were towers that they set on fire and are able to train firefighters in their craft. Of course, they have to be trained in a lot of different scenarios, and a lot of those scenarios are motorway accidents. There are some horrific pile-ups that these firemen have to go to and cut people out of the vehicles. So they needed a test track area where they could do that, and this was specifically built. It had 4 lanes plus a hard shoulder, a central armco, and 4 lanes the other side, and the length was roughly half a mile with some big turnaround points at each end. So roughly 30 of us went down there in a variety of different vehicles because we were supposed to mimic normal motorway flowing. So we had HGVs, we had vans, we had cars, the usual things that are going to use on the motorways. We were able to leave the cars and lorries and that there and then just ferry ourselves back and forth each day in a fleet of saloon vehicles. We all just piled in, 5 to a car, and we went down in a smaller fleet. But that first day we had to go down with a lot of vehicles. And we were there about 2 weeks. Now this was in conjunction with the Ministry of Transport, and they were taking data on the flow of the traffic and what would happen if somebody broke down. Of course, I said at the time, this isn't fair, because we are all professional drivers. We know that you're going to simulate a car's broken down on the inside lane. Why the inside lane? If there's no hard shoulder on these smart motorways, why would anybody bother pulling over to the inside lane? I mean, it could just be historic memory. That's where the hard shoulder used to be. So I said at the time, why do we have to pretend it's in the inside lane? Why not the middle lane? One of the middle lanes being 4 lanes. Why not the outside lane? And they said, because that would be the way that we will educate people to use the smart motorways. Okay, fair enough. But that's not what's happened in real life. As I said, when we were helping them collect the data on these smart motorways, we were all professional drivers. We were all there to do that job. We knew in advance which car they'd pick, where it was going to break down, and how we were supposed to deal with that, which was to zip filter between the inside lane and the next nearest lane. Zip filter is like a zip that each one interlocks. So if you imagine each one of these is a car on the inside lane and each one of these cars is on the middle lane, you literally zip together. I don't know if you've ever noticed, but that's not what happens in real life. In real life, a lot of people, it's like, oh, I'm not letting you out. And you also get those that, I'm not looking. If I can't see you, I can't let you in. Because people are selfish. Not everybody, obviously, otherwise those people on the inside lane that are stuck behind a broken down vehicle would never get anywhere. No, usually people will let them in. But 9 times out of 10, people get smug. It's like, well, I picked the right lane. You're the one who's stuck. It's not how it was when we did the data recovery and the data login for how a smart motorway was supposed to work. Of course, this small test motorway also had the gantries up. It was recording, live stream. It also had the banks of lights up so they could put an X on whichever lane that was broken down. And that's another thing with the smart motorways. These gantries are at these periodic quite close to each other because they can see if a car's broken down and they can close that lane down. And ideally, nobody drives in that lane and therefore the broken down vehicle is safe. Again, that's not what happens in the real world. People will drive between these gantries in the closed off lane thinking, I can get ahead of this traffic because nobody's in this lane. And they then will try and get into a lane that is live before they get to the next gantry where they will get clocked and also fined. That's what happens in the real world. You see, like most systems, what they've tried to do is create an idiot-proof system. I'm afraid there's no such thing as an idiot-proof system. If you've ever developed a system that you think's idiot-proof, you're not taking into consideration the pure ingenuity of an idiot. They will always find some way to cock up any system. And the weakest point in any system that has mankind in it is man. It's humans. We're the weakest point in any system. Have you ever had somebody say, oh, it was a computer error? No such thing. A man or woman had to type in data to that computer for it to make an error. All it will do is what you ask of it. And that's the same with the smart motorways. If everybody behaved on them as they would hope you to behave on them, they would run brilliantly. But humans are humans. We will always find some way to circumvent any system. An idiot will always use their ingenuity to outwit an idiot-proof system. So this is what's wrong with our smart motorways. They aren't very smart. Or should I say, the people using them, us, we users of the, and I put myself in this category as much as anybody else, we're not very smart. We just want to get from A to B as quick as we possibly can with as little hassle as we can. And if there are tailbacks, we think we know the way to get around those tailbacks that nobody else knows. And it never works. And that's the problem with the smart motorway. It's set as though it is smart, but the people using it aren't very. So the smart motorway doesn't really work. But now there is some data of these smart motorways that have gone live. That 283 serious accidents have been caused on these smart motorways for the simple reason that you no longer have that safe zone of a hard shoulder. Because people are breaking down on these lanes and not on the left-hand lane as they expected. They're breaking down in all four lanes. And as soon as they've broken down, doesn't matter if they've got their hazard lights on. Let me give you a scenario. If a car's broken down in the right-hand lane, what most people call the fast lane, it's not, it's just the furthest right overtaking lane. But that's the one people tend to go out in because in this country, you're not allowed to undertake vehicles. You have to overtake on the right. So that's the one where the fastest vehicles tend to be going because they're overtaking everybody. So a car's broken down in the right-hand lane and it's now got its hazard lights on. Well, for a start, where's the safe zone for the passengers and the driver to stand like they used to be on the hard shoulder? There isn't one, so they tend to stay in their vehicles. Now you've got very fast approaching vehicles approaching a stationary vehicle in a very fast lane. It's a recipe for disaster and has been disastrous because there have been quite a few pileups and some serious injuries that have been attributed just to the smart motorway. As I said 15, 17 years ago when we were working to gather the data for the smart motorway, I said at the time, this is not going to work. And I pointed these points out that you're taking away a safe zone, which is the hard shoulder. At the time, the plan was not to take away the hard shoulder, but just to increase another lane and put the gantries up so they could use the matrix and also the speed regulators, as well as speed cameras and live stream cameras, so they could see in real time what was going on the motorways, whether they were getting very busy times, like I said earlier. That was the initial plan. But I also said, look, we all know that there's going to be a broken down car, and we all let each other in because we're all professionals, and also this is just not like real life. You can't simulate real life. There's too much chaos in it, hence the whole science of chaos theory. But from the data they took, which was quite frankly poor data, they developed the smart motorway, which we have to put up with now. And quite frankly, I don't think it's going to work the way they want it to work, especially with the vehicles that we have now on the road. It will work if we go to full autonomous vehicles, but that's quite some way away, and I do mean many years, if not decades away from happening, because there's got to be a legislation changed before full autonomous vehicles would ever be allowed on our road, but that's for another video. So as I say, smart motorways, not very smart, especially when they've got some plum like me involved in the development of them. So there you go, that's my views on smart motorways. Leave a comment down below, tell me what you think, whether you agree or disagree with me. Maybe you've got some different view completely to what I've just been saying. Also, don't forget, if you haven't already, hit the subscribe button. Don't forget to hit the bell icon, that way you won't miss out on future content. And as always, give it a like, you know you want to. And if you do, you'll have a good day. Anyway, let's have a little bit of humour. So there's this young couple, they're engaged, they're about to get married. They're falling in love with each other, but the pair of them are completely naive about adult world and sexy time. But they've gone out on their stag night and hen night the week before their wedding with their friends. And of course, the guy's out on the stag night with his friends and they're ribbing him they're really taking the mick out of him. They're going, hey, next week, honeymoon night, you'll be showing her what's what, eh? What's what? And he's like, oh yeah, I'll definitely, I'll show her what's what. He hasn't got a clue what they're talking about, but he doesn't want to make himself look less than knowledgeable, so he just goes along, oh yeah, what's what, yeah. Of course, the same thing's happening to her on the hen night. They're out and about and her mates are all cackling and having fun and drinking, and they're nudging her and going, hey, next week, your honeymoon night, he's going to be telling you, he's going to show you what's what, hey, he's going to be showing you what's what. And she's not got a clue either, and she's like, oh yeah, what's what? Yeah, of course he will. Oh yes, absolutely, what's what? Well, they have the wedding the week later, and then they end up in the honeymoon suite, and she nips off to the bathroom to get changed, and while she's out there, he puts his pyjamas on. So he's top to tail in pyjamas. She comes out with a Winsiette nightie down to the floor and up to the neck, and she stands and looks at him, and she goes, well, come on then. And he goes, come on what? She says, show me what's what. And he goes, what do you mean, show you what's what? I haven't got what's what. She goes, you must have. My friend said you're going to show me what's what. He says, my friend said the same thing, but I haven't got one. I don't know where it is. She goes, really? And he goes, no, I didn't bring one. She goes, well, this is the honeymoon suite. Maybe they've got one here. So now they're hunting high and low for what's what in this honeymoon suite. They're looking in cupboards and in drawers and wardrobes, in the bathroom again. He clowns under the bed and he's crawling through under the bed. And as he comes out the other side, something catches the back of his pyjama bottoms, pulls them off as he comes out. So now he's naked from the waist down. And she goes, what's that? And he goes, what's what? She goes, oh, you had it all along. So now you know what's what. Anyway, you people out there, as always, be happy, be healthy, but above all else, take care of yourself, because if you don't, who will? Goodbye now.
I'm a simple man, don't wanna complicate you.